We've all got better, haven't we, at video conferencing and Zooming? But let's see what words as the words continue to come in. Listening is really getting the biggest shout there.
The crisis started about a year ago in Hungary, and if someone would have told me that we're going to be looking at a year like this, I probably would have told them that this is going to be very, very difficult to overcome. But we somehow did, and we're probably going to come out better at the end of it.
Thank you so much. And there's a lovely word coming in on the chat from Christian, which is awakening. I'd love to hear more about that in a moment. Thank you for sharing that, Declan. And I think, that also talks to Attila's point about it's so much more difficult when you're not face to face, when you aren't able to have that eye to eye connection, when everything is being done in this virtual world. Before we all feel too low about the things that went wrong, I'm just going to read from Christian. In fact, Christian, why don't you unmute yourself and just share your success with us? Because this looks pretty impressive to me. So, Christian, tell us what you've been doing from your home studio.
Yes, I'm
going to use my favorite expression, which is "you're on mute." If I had £1 for every time we say "you're on mute," that would be good. Can we unmute you, Christian?
I was preparing myself.
Struggling to unmute you.
Oh.
Let me just check if we have blocked you from speaking. There we go. Christian,
yes.
We can hear you now.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
I can hear you now.
I was preparing my home device over 10 years ago because I was predicted that something like this might happen, and I just wished to be prepared. So obviously, wow. I didn't build my entire studio in just a few months. I needed years of work and creating all the connections and needed for the editing room, and in another room the entire studio with graphics and TV plasma between me and the guest. A lot of work. I was studying climate changes, and I was focusing on having this plan put into practice due to that part. But I also, in my studies, taken into the account the possibility of a pandemic and what could we do then. So I'm the only one prepared here in TVR Cluj with a private complete studio.
Fantastic. I wish we had all had your foresight. I wish we had all been preparing for this moment. It sounds absolutely extraordinary what you've done in your home. So many congratulations. But we're going to move on now to giving you a chance to move into a breakout.
Is it worth requesting joining another group? Because I obviously haven't seen the beginning of it, so there's not so much. I don't know what was said to discuss.
Maybe about vaccination or other problems.
What have you found the main? So, are you a studio manager? What's your role in Romania?
I am a TV program producer.
Are you in news?
Journalist. No, science program.
Oh, okay. So okay. So science documentary.
No.
And series.
Only discussions, illustrated discussions with university professors on scientific problems for the public. So we present science in the fashion called public understanding of science, which means science made available for untrained audience.
So conversational. So it's so interviews, basically. So lots of interviews with scientists.
Yes, interviews at my home. So I have my own studio in order to have the guests invited here, and using very high quality video cameras instead of Zoom.
Yeah.
But obviously for scientists which are far from my city, which cannot come here, who cannot travel because there are some travel restrictions in some cities, obviously with them I will record the interviews on Zoom.
I'm going to go to Neil now, because I think he's been looking at some of the chat and comments coming in. Neil.
Yes, I have. Some really useful comments from Christian, who's continued the theme of what we were talking about earlier on, but particularly around the linking into Attila's points around fake news, and for Christian, it's understanding of science and trust that you build up through that.
So
Jane,
yes.
Jane, yeah, Pfizer was down to just me, Debs, and Scarlett by the time I got there. But there are some more points and questions on the chat that I'll just relay. I think we've sort of covered this, but it's in the scheme of what are we going to continue doing? And Montse was pointing out that what would happen after the pandemic, and what we learned. Will teleworking become much more normal? I think a number of our leaders have talked about that. And then picking up on the theme of pressure, either from politicians or in terms of stuff that isn't true. Christian saying there's no political involvement in his program, and he's very much an advocate of how science and the truth around science is even more important right now.